Hello and welcome to this edition of Wineskins, a program that features reflections on the lives of the saints and sacred scriptures, along with information on topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Father Jim Korda. Wineskins is brought to you by the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. On our show today, I will interview Margie Hynes in part one from the series called Spotlight. We will also look at the life of Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, as well as reflections on the readings for this 23rd Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more coming up on Wineskins. In our Bishop's Corner, we will welcome Father Norbert Keliher. With me again is Father Norbert Keliher, who is the chaplain and director of campus ministry for Youngstown State University. Welcome back to Wineskins.
Thanks. It's great to be back with you.
You know, last time, Father Norbert, that you were here, we spent time talking about your work as the campus minister there at YSU. Right now, I think what I'd like us to talk about is your vocation, and vocations primarily to the priesthood and religious life. You know, you were ordained in 2019. You're a young priest, and it's such a wonderful example for us older priests, and I think for us as Catholics, to see young people being interested in becoming priests and living out the faith as an ordained minister. Talk about your journey as a young seminarian onward to priesthood.
Well, I'm from the Pacific Northwest area, and I have to say I was pretty lightly catechized growing up. But the young adult, or I should say the youth and young adult ministry has always been very important for me. So I was part of a youth group in high school that really got me excited about being Christian and telling people, you know, without being ashamed, but friends in high school, and that, yeah, I really believe in Jesus, and I think the gospel is true. And then I started investigating more on my own and kind of finding about the riches of the Catholic Church, you know, the 2,000-year history, and especially I was fascinated by religious life, by monks and by religious who gave everything to follow Jesus and what became of their lives. So I had this desire, I think, pretty early on in high school to be radical, to try to give everything to Jesus and see if I could be a saint too. And now I had some ups and downs throughout college, but I did keep on thinking about the priesthood, and I visited different religious orders. And it was coming to a kind of balance between wanting to be a contemplative, or just wanting to spend all day in prayer and seeking divine union with Jesus, and then the desire to evangelize, to go out and to tell people about the gospel and bring them to Jesus. So the balance I found was the Dominican charism of preaching. We're a medieval order still, so we live in community, we wear a medieval habit, we chant the Psalms, and there's a lot of features of our life that go back to those older monastic traditions. But then our mission is preaching. We go out, we trying to explain the gospel, proclaim it, Jesus, and do everything we can to make the faith attractive to people. So that we call it the mixed life. You know, this ideal is hard to work out in practice, but being both a contemplative and a preacher, and that was really what drew me.
It's almost kind of like a dichotomy in the lives, I think, of Christians, you know, being with the world and being apart from the world. You know, the world as we know it is not always great and blessed and holy, but we're called to be part of the holiness and the grace and the goodness in the world. So it's almost trying to find your place in the world, but also bringing some effect and some goodness and blessings while we're living in this world. In your experience as a young priest, what would be some of the things for us and for the folks that are listening that we could be attuned to encourage more young people to the priesthood and religious life?
I think one thing is just to help young people realize that it's possible. It's not something for just a few rare, gifted people, but it's an open invitation from Jesus to follow him closely. It's a love story. I want to be close to Jesus and discover all the gifts that are there in religious life and the priesthood. Another thing is to encourage generosity, because it does take a sacrifice up front that's not there in the same way in marriage or just the desire to pursue a career. Now, marriage, of course, requires tremendous sacrifice, but up front, it's not as demanding. There's a sweetness to courtship and to marriage that then later down the road, you realize just how difficult it is.
Sure. I want to go back real briefly to that one word you use is to trying to become a saint. In the early church, Christians referred to themselves as the saints. Over time, we came to learn that we are striving for sainthood and holiness. In a nutshell, what can we do as Christians to strive for sainthood?
One is to realize that Jesus has already accomplished everything we need to be saints. We don't lack anything. In a way, there's a whole spirituality of just not making excuses. But it's not confidence in ourselves, it's confidence in what God has given us each day. And it really is a matter of desire. People, a lot of times they'll come to the confessional and they say they want to grow in patience or they want to grow in some of the virtue. But what has to lie beyond that is love of God and just asking God to increase desire for him. And then other things come along with it.
Father Norbert Keliher, our time has flown by. We appreciate your presence on Wineskins again. We look forward to your presence again. We thank you for the work you do at YSU, but especially for answering God's call to the priesthood.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. The church celebrates a feast of Saint Mother Teresa. To tell us more is Diana Hancharenko. She is the young adult minister at St. Angela Merici Church in Youngstown.
Born on August 26, 1910 to Albanian parents in what is now Macedonia, Agnes was the youngest of the 3 children who survived. For a time, the family lived comfortably, and her father's construction business thrived. During her years in public school, Agnes participated in a Catholic sodality and showed a strong interest in the foreign missions. At age 18, she entered the Loreto Sisters in Dublin. It was 1928 when she said goodbye to her mother for the final time and made her way to a new land and a new life. The following year, she was sent to the Loreto Novitiate in India. There, she chose the name Teresa and prepared for a life of service. She was assigned to a high school for girls in Calcutta, where she taught history and geography to the daughters of the wealthy. But she could not escape the realities around her: the poverty, the suffering, the overwhelming numbers of destitute people. In 1946, while riding a train to make a retreat, Sister Teresa heard what later she explained as a call within a call. The message was clear. I was to leave the convent and help the poor while living among them. She also heard a call to give up her life with the Sisters of Loreto, and instead, to follow Christ into the slums to serve him among the poorest of the poor. After receiving permission to leave Loreto, establish a new community, and undertake her new work, she took a nursing course for several months. She returned to Calcutta, where she lived in the slums and opened a school for poor children. Dressed in a white sari and sandals, the ordinary dress of an Indian woman, she soon began getting to know her neighbors, especially the poor and sick, and getting to know their needs through visits. The work was exhausting, but she was not alone for long. Volunteers came to join her in the work. Some of them, former students, became the core of the Missionaries of Charity. Others helped by donating food, clothing, supplies, and the use of buildings. In 1952, the city of Calcutta gave Mother Teresa a former hostel, which became a home for the dying and the destitute. As the order expanded, services were also offered to orphans, abandoned children, alcoholics, the aging, and street people. For the next 4 decades, Mother Teresa worked tirelessly on behalf of the poor. Her love knew no bounds. She crisscrossed the globe, pleading for support and inviting others to see the face of Jesus in the poorest of the poor. In 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. On September 5, 1997, God called her home. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, the tiny woman recognized throughout the world for her work among the poorest of the poor, was beatified October 19, 2003. Among those present were hundreds of Missionaries of Charity, the order she founded in 1950 as a diocesan religious community. Today, the congregation also includes contemplative sisters and brothers and an order of priests. Speaking in a strained voice at the Beatification Mass, Saint Pope John Paul II declared her blessed, prompting waves of applause before the 300,000 pilgrims in St. Peter's Square. In his homily read by an aide for the aging Pope, the Holy Father called Mother Teresa one of the most relevant personalities of our age and an icon of the Good Samaritan. Her life, he said, was a bold proclamation of the gospel. Mother Teresa's beatification, just over 6 years after her death, was part of an expedited process put into effect by St. Pope John Paul II. Like so many others around the world, he found her love for the Eucharist, for prayer, and for the poor, a model for all to emulate. She was canonized on September 4th, 2016. For Wineskins, I'm Diana Hancharenko.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Korda. Today we're going to talk about the Religious Ed Department and the Media Library here in the Diocese of Youngstown. And joining me in today's show is Margie Hynes. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I think for the folks that are with us, you're really a new face to our diocese in the downtown offices since this last July 2021. For the folks that are with us that really don't know you, who would like to get to know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in the northern part of Georgia, so I'm not native to Ohio, and I actually grew up in the Baptist faith, so I'm a convert to Catholicism. I've been married to my husband for 28 years this year. I have 2 children, Maddie 22 and Joseph 19. He just turned 19. We live in Austintown, and I was at St. Rose for a while and Immaculate Heart for a while, and I love what I do. It's a shame to call it a job because I love what I do so much.
Sure. We're going to talk more about your specific work, but I'd like to go back to your conversion, your becoming a Catholic. Was that something you did prior to your marriage or because of your marriage?
It was because of my marriage.
Okay.
Growing up in the Bible Belt, there weren't a whole lot of Catholics around to even know what it was about. So when I met my husband, I really wanted our family to attend church together and not one go with me and one go with him. So I converted to Catholicism and went through the RCIA process and just fell in love with the church.
That's wonderful. And, you know, it's interesting as you were talking, the one image that always comes to my mind when I think of the RCIA or Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults is it's really not just a process, but you're really being loved into the church. And that's something that I always hope that us kind of cradle Catholics always remember, that love and that faith is handed on to us through our parents and godparents. But as a new Catholic in your adult life, you know, you're really loved into the faith. What keeps you in the faith? What is it that you like about the church that really holds you, especially during this time of pandemic too?
I love the pomp and circumstance of the church. I love the smells and bells and the traditions that are there. But the Eucharist is probably the most important thing to me. That was something that I struggled with in the beginning because, you know, it wasn't something I was familiar with. But after learning more about it and experiencing it, that's probably the thing that draws me there and keeps me there.
You know, it's interesting because the Eucharist, obviously for us as Catholics, is really the center and who we are and what we're all about. For the folks that maybe haven't been able to get to church out of fear or health or whatever the reason is during this past year, what encouragement would you give them or solace could you give them about holding on to the faith and knowing that the Eucharist is always there to really get us through many things?
There are a lot of opportunities in the diocese to watch Mass live on TV, and I think participating in that and it not just being a TV show, but you participating in the Mass and knowing that those of us that are there in the parish, in the actual building, in the church, are praying for you. You're still part of us. Even though you're not there in person, you're still part of our group and our person.
One of the things that you had said earlier is that it's really not a job that you do because you love doing your work. It's really kind of a vocation. Why is it important, or ministry, I guess is even a better word, why is it important for us who work in the church to understand that what we do is really not just a day-to-day job, but it's part of the ministry of the Lord? What keeps you excited about that?
I want people to love Jesus like I love Jesus. And I get a lot of energy. I do a lot with the CCD kids, and I get a lot of energy from the kids. Just that wanting to share the Word of God and that for them to love Jesus like I love Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you do. I know in the past you've been a director of religious education, probably worked with children's liturgy of the Word, youth ministry, all of those things. Was there any one thing in ministry ministry that really drew you to ministry itself? What was it you liked doing in the beginning?
Being with the parents and with the children and watching them grow in their faith and walking with them on that journey. In the sacraments, when you witness, like the little ones make their first reconciliation or their first communion, there's just such joy in that. It makes me so happy. It's awesome.
Yeah. And those are really kind of milestones in our lives as Catholics. You know, the sacraments, whether it's first confession, first Holy Communion, confirmation, eventually, hopefully, marriage or holy orders, whatever. Those sacraments really are highlights in our Christian life. And why is that really kind of a journey for us, or really more of a process, or a kind of a way of life that we celebrate those milestones? And why is it important to celebrate those?
I think the grace of God coming down during those sacraments, and it's a visual of what's happening on the inside. It's a community celebration, which is very important. I think that we keep that in a community. But the grace of God and helping them understand. And it's a journey because we're never finished. You're never going to learn everything about God. There's going to be different times in your life when things mean different than they did. But it is a journey. It's not something we're ever going to be completely.
You know, it's wonderful that you say that, because so often some of us seasoned Catholics believe that what we learned years ago back in 8th grade or senior year of high school was it, and we'll never be able to get to know more or learn more or understand more. But it's really a day-to-day growth in our not only knowledge but in our faith life as well, and how important it is to continue that
Absolutely.
journey. You know?
Absolutely.
Because if we don't, it's almost like you get kind of stagnant, you know. What was one area working with parents that you really like doing?
Watching them interact with their children. Sacramental prep, I always had the parents attend with the children when we had our mission, and watching them interact and share their stories of faith with their children is really neat.
You know, we know, at least with baptism, when a parent brings their child for baptism, they're told, you are the first teachers of your children in the ways of the faith. Be the best teachers in what you say and do. And you instilling that in them and celebrating that is really important. For more information and to listen to Wineskins, visit the website of the Catholic Diocese of Youngstown at www.doi.org. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Christopher Minutes, thoughts on making every day count. Here's Monsignor Jim Lisanti.
On February 3, 1966, U.S. Navy Captain Gerald Coffey was flying a reconnaissance mission off the coast of North Vietnam. When he lost control of his aircraft, he was captured on the ground by North Vietnamese forces. He would spend the next 7+ years in prison. Recalling the experience, the former POW says, "The key to my survival was faith in God above all, but also faith in others and in myself. I learned to appreciate myself and my own humanity." In order to stay focused on his faith, Captain Gerald Coffey created a visual reminder for himself. He says, "The first 2 words I scratched on my cell wall made all the difference. They were 2 words with an equal sign between them. God equals strength." My friends, no matter what your circumstances, you can find strength in God.
33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
They say America is a land of opportunity, where kids can grow up and become anything they want.
But for some of us, it's not so easy.
Today, 1 out of every 6 children in America lives in poverty.
That's almost 13 million of us.
That's almost 13 million of us living below the poverty line.
The poverty line divides us all into those who have
and those who never have enough. Not enough food or medicine, or even a place to live. When you live in poverty, every day is hard.
But we don't want a handout. We want a way out.
A way out of poverty for me and my family.
For good.
This is America.
This is America. Together, we can do so much. Will you help?
Nearly 13 million children in America live below the poverty line. You can make a difference in more ways than you know. Go to povertyusa.org and get involved. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
The song we have for you today is from the CD entitled Songs of Praise. It is by Salvatore Tassone. To tell us more about the scriptures for this 23rd Sunday in Ordinary Time is Deacon Paul Lisko. He is from St. Charles Church in Boardman.
There are many places in the Gospels where the Lord speaks with apocalyptic language. That type of language uses shocking imagery to catch the listener's attention. Today's Gospel is a great example of this. Jesus said that we can't be his disciples if we come to him without hating our father and mother, wife and husband, children and parents, brothers and sisters, and even our own lives. That's shocking, and it gets our attention. But what is Jesus really saying to us today? Are we to ignore the fourth commandment? Are we to refuse to see God in others? Are we to ignore God's word in our own lives? The answer, of course, is no. He's illustrating to us the demand of being his disciples. The problem for many of us is that today's lifestyle makes it very difficult to be a true disciple. Our everyday lives can easily become more important to us than God Himself. And what Jesus was saying is that we should hate anything that keeps us from doing what we need to do, and that is serving God. To be disciples of Jesus Christ means that we have to live beyond the significant things that we put into our lives and make time first for the things of God. So when Jesus speaks about hating mother and father, wife and husband, children and parents, brothers and sisters, He's just using this shocking language, telling us that we should hate anything or anyone that causes us to lose our focus on God. Nothing in this world is more important than serving God. Not our stuff, not our likes, not our perceived position among our peers, not even the people in our lives. We should not and cannot let anything stand in the way of our being a disciple of Jesus. Jesus told us, "He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it in eternal life." May we have the spiritual strength today to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. For Wineskins, I'm Deacon Paul.
We cannot conform ourselves to God's will on our own strength. When have you felt the warmth of the Holy Spirit? How have you experienced the power of prayer to fuel that flame more brightly? Wineskins is made possible through the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. The program is produced by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. I'm Father Jim Korda, saying thank you for being with us. Have a blessed and safe holiday week.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. It looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. But she's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
They say America is the land of opportunity, but for some, life isn't so easy. Right now in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. That's nearly 13 million children of all races, all across our country. Where do you draw the line and get involved? You can make a difference in more ways than you think. Go to povertyusa.org today, because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.